Ferrari is experiencing a moment of pressure. In fact, Elkann and Benedetto Vigna have arrived in Maranello. Indeed, right now, there is an ongoing discussion about the future of the Ferrari team. In today's video, we will see together what was discussed in this meeting. What will be Nicolas Todt's decision? Who is Leclerc's manager? Regarding the Monegasque's future, we obviously need to talk about Lewis Hamilton's brake problem, because there are reports on the matter. Let's also look at the statements from various figures, including Jenson Button, who has spoken out about the Englishman's future. Finally, we need to consider the option of Oscar Piastri at Ferrari in the future. And we also talk about the possible return of a new Grand Prix, which is also historical, if you will, within the circus. Before we start, please leave a supportive like, and now let's look at everything in detail. After yet another disappointing weekend, two major figures at Ferrari, Benedetto Vigna and Elkann, are about to walk through the gates of the team's sporting headquarters. It's not a courtesy visit. The official aim is to present the new strategic plan until 2030. But for those who live by Formula 1, it's clear that behind these doors, urgent issues and the future of the team will also be discussed. On October 9th, Ferrari will show investors its long-term vision, financial plans, upcoming models, and especially the first electric supercar that we will see only in 2026. But for the fans, the real issue is another. The prancing horse in Formula 1 is not working as it should, and the feeling is that alongside the challenges for shareholders, there will be a heavy internal confrontation between the top management and Frederic Vasseur. But why is this meeting crucial? Ferrari started with high expectations for 2025, but the results are not coming. Repeated technical problems, questionable strategic choices, and a team that seems to lack a clear direction towards 2026, the year of the new regulatory revolution. Vigna and Elkann are not just bystanders. When the CEO and the president arrive together in Maranello, it means a thorough assessment is needed. The paddock whispers that there will be a direct face-to-face between Vasseur and the top executives. It's not just a matter of performance. There is talk of internal organization, key men who might leave, and a certain frustration building among drivers and technicians. The risk is another transitional season that Ferrari cannot afford. There are three sticking points that could explode. The unclear technical direction with regulatory changes looming. The Rossa cannot afford to get the 2026 single-seater wrong. Some departments are asking for more freedom, others for greater coordination. Immediate decisions are needed. The second point is the management of the drivers. Leclerc wants to win and does not hide his impatience. Hamilton is seeking stability in a team that seems to be continuously changing. And third is the engineering market. Several engineers are considering leaving. McLaren and Red Bull are courting talents from Maranello, and a brain drain now would be devastating. So what do we expect after this internal summit at Ferrari? We don't know if there will be a public announcement, but the internal effect will be enormous. A clear message could come as early as the next few weeks. Total confirmation for Vasseur, or the first signs of change in the technical structure. We know that the French team principal was renewed in the summer. Fans expect a stance because the pressure is at its peak. 2026 is around the corner, and Ferrari cannot enter the new era of Formula 1 late, as has happened in the past. This is why the arrival of Vigna and Elkann is not just an institutional event. It's a moment of truth. And we need to talk specifically about the second point that will also be addressed in the internal meeting in Maranello, namely the management of the drivers, because we know Nicolas Todt is in contact with other teams. Let's see what this is about in detail. Behind every great driver, there is always a manager pulling the strings. And in the case of Charles Leclerc, that name is Nicolas Todt. He is the one who, back in 2009, discovered a Monegasque boy winning on French cuts and decided to bet on him. He is the one who brought him from Formula 3 to Ferrari. And he is the one who today, after years of waiting, is loudly saying what many fans have been thinking for a long time. Charles is one of the best of his generation, but he needs a winning car. Simple yet very weighty words delivered in an interview to the Singapore Straits Times right during the race weekend. Todt does not hide his frustration. We have a good car, but not enough to win the title. We hope Ferrari can give Charles what he deserves as early as next year with the new rules. And it's a signal to the paddock and to Ferrari. This sentence is not just an outburst, it's a precise message to Maranello. After seasons of promises and missed opportunities, Leclerc can no longer wait indefinitely. He arrived as a prodigy, became the symbol of Ferrari, but the world titles remain distant, and now time is running out. Charles already has significant experience. He is no longer the young man full of promise. And here, Todt states it clearly. A top car is needed. And it's no coincidence that 2026 is being talked about, the year in which the regulations will change, in which Ferrari cannot afford another technical failure. Another point raising eyebrows concerns the rumors about potential interest from other teams in Leclerc. Names like Mercedes and Aston Martin return cyclically. Todt neither confirmed nor denied. He prefers to remain silent, but that silence is heavy. Because if Ferrari fails to build a championship-winning car, it's clear that Charles might look around, especially with the 2027 driver market heating up. There are many contracts expiring and several top teams ready to make changes. For Leclerc, the relationship with Ferrari is very strong emotionally, but Formula One is unforgiving and the manager knows it well. He sends a message without causing any public fallout, but the subtext is crystal clear. Either you win or the future is unwritten. So beware that in internal decisions at Maranello, they must also consider Leclerc's uncertain future. Uncertain on purpose because Charles wants to have the best car to try to win the title. We know his love for Ferrari is immense and he has shown it many times, but now we need answers. We want to see actions, not just nice words at the beginning of the year. Let's look with data in hand at the problems the Ferrari SF25 encountered in Singapore. What is the outcome of the brake analysis? It's not Brembo's fault. The problem with Ferrari's cooling is in how Ferrari manages the cooling. We saw it clearly from the first laps. The Ferrari pit ordered its drivers to lift and coast, meaning to lift off the throttle before braking to reduce heat and consumption. It's a strategy used by everyone, but Marina Bay became a constant agony for Leclerc and Hamilton. When at the end, Lewis Hamilton tried to attack Andrea Kimi Antonelli, the brake temperatures skyrocketed. The Englishman had to slow down and stayed just ahead of Fernando Alonso, a disaster that also cost Ferrari crucial constructor points. But why does only Ferrari have this problem? The brakes are the same for everyone. There are the same Brembo calipers used by Red Bull, so the fault isn't there. The difference is in the design of the air intakes and the internal cooling system. On the track, there are teams that continuously change the brake air intakes to adapt to conditions. Ferrari, on the other hand, almost always maintains the same configuration. The reason? Every time you widen the air intakes, you let in more fresh air, lose aerodynamic load and worsen efficiency. It's a short blanket. Either you keep the car aerodynamically efficient but risk overheating, or you open everything and lose performance. At the moment, Ferrari seems not to have found a competitive compromise. And what does this mean for the future? If the Ferrari SF25 continues to have rigid cooling, problems will return on all hot and stop-and-go circuits like Singapore, including Mexico and Abu Dhabi. And this is alarming looking ahead to 2026, when the rules will change, but the aerodynamic base and cooling concepts will still be fundamental. An immediate solution is needed. New variable air intakes, more sophisticated internal ducts, maybe sacrificing some load so as not to force drivers to drive with the handbrake on. And we also saw Leclerc couldn't handle this continuous lift and coast anymore in Singapore, and the Ferrari drivers have suffered from it since the start of the race, compared to rivals who can manage braking as they want. Because in Singapore, the rivals had larger air intakes compared to Ferrari, which had smaller brake air intakes. Let's look at this technical detail because it is very important. Charles Leclerc exploded over the radio and said, "Don't complain, for heaven's sake. We are always doing 200 meters of lift and coast." An outburst that says more than 1,000 analyses ever could. The Ferrari SF25 is forced to do extreme lift and coast lap after lap. But we must start from a simple yet crucial concept. Ferrari can't generate enough aerodynamic load without compromising other aspects of the car. Normally, to increase grip, you can lower the car and make it stick to the asphalt. But we know Ferrari can't go too low with the floor. It would risk wearing out the plank under the chassis and thus face technical disqualification, as already happened in China. If you can't lower the car, where can you find additional load? And this is where a fatal compromise comes into play. Reduce the brake air intakes to make them more aerodynamic and clean. This way you gain some efficiency points, but you choke the braking system. Let's say the comparison could be like running 100 meters with the handbrake on. It's not just a matter of driving problems. The constant change of braking references also confuses the drivers. It also confuses the car's balance. You don't know whether to shift the brake balance to the front or rear, and are forced to think more about protecting the car than fighting the opponent. In short, Ferrari knows what the problem is, but they can't find concrete solutions. Something is wrong with the information coming from the track to Maranello. So either a different aerodynamic compromise, smarter air intakes, innovative wind tunnel solutions are found, or the team will remain trapped in the same exasperating management next year too. And the real question is, right now, will Hamilton continue in Formula One and with Ferrari beyond 2026? Or will 2026 be his last year? Let's try to answer this question by seeing what Lewis Hamilton's former colleagues say. In fact, Jenson Button, former teammate and world champion, explained it clearly. With the new 2026 regulations, we will see the real Hamilton. He will either be at his best or ready to call it quit. And it is a serious warning. The new regulations change everything. Engines, aerodynamics, car philosophy. It's the last call for Ferrari and also the last call for Lewis Hamilton to try to have a winning car in a cycle that has been negative so far. Behind the scenes, there's a crucial detail. The agreement between Hamilton and Ferrari is indeed multi-year, a so-called multi-year contract, but with a key clause. The third year, 2027, depends only on him. If Hamilton wants to stay, he stays. If he wants to leave, Ferrari cannot stop him. This means that 2026 will be a massive proving ground. If Ferrari is not competitive with the new rules, Lewis Hamilton will have the power to leave, whether it's retirement or a new adventure. So, what to expect now? He himself said it. It takes time to adapt to a new team without the trusted engineering team he had at Mercedes. But time is also the word Ferrari fans don't want to hear anymore. The window for winning is narrowing, and Lewis Hamilton is 40 years old. If Ferrari takes a step forward with the 2026 car, the 8th title will remain possible. If instead it will be another year of management and disappointments, we might witness a sensational farewell. And there was also a very amusing exchange between Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso during the Singapore Grand Prix. In fact, it all stems from a surreal situation. Hamilton was struggling with the brakes on his Ferrari and picking up incident after incident, lap after lap, while Alonso tried to overtake him with his Aston Martin. In the end, the Spaniard explodes on the radio with a phrase that goes more viral than anything else that weekend. I cannot believe it. Is the heart safe without brakes? 5 seconds minimum. The message is crystal clear. Alonso believes that Hamilton's Ferrari was dangerous and that the penalty which eventually came was too light. After the race, the FIA examines the case. Hamilton admits to having exceeded track limits several times while trying to manage the brakes, now at a limit. But the stewards explain that this does not fall under force majeure exceptions. Result: they gave Lewis Hamilton a 5-second penalty and he was relegated to 8th place, while Alonso moved up to 7th on paper. The funny thing is that Hamilton didn't respond in the press conference but on social media. In fact, I posted this video where the phrase "I don't believe it" is repeated, which is a clear reference to Fernando Alonso's radio outburst, also with the caption 18 years of, referring to the fact that Alonso has been complaining about Lewis Hamilton for 18 years. For those who have been following Formula 1 for years, this is not just any rivalry. Hamilton and Alonso share a long history full of sparks. They were teammates in 2007 at McLaren, an explosive season with Spygate and internal tensions that led Alonso to leave after just 1 year. In recent times, the relationship had cooled, almost normalized. There's mutual respect, some ironic banter, but no wars. However, Singapore reignited the old flame. Two proud champions, both still competitive, who don't want to give up even an inch. And on one side, Alonso is always ready to point out alleged favoritism or leniencies by the FIA. On the other hand, Hamilton, who despite the difficulties with Ferrari, prefers to respond with irony rather than direct controversy. But it's evident that there's still underlying rivalry and a desire to prove who's stronger even at 40. This episode draws further attention to the end of the season, and especially to 2026, where both might find themselves battling with new cars and regulations. And indeed, we've also heard Alonso say, "But is it safe to drive without brakes?" A team radio that was obviously directed at the FIA, which had to penalize Lewis Hamilton, and then did, but he expected a larger penalty for the English champion. But be aware that if Lewis Hamilton or Charles Leclerc were to leave Ferrari, there could be a chance of seeing Oscar Piastri in red. Let's see why. The paddock never sleeps, and after Singapore, it took just a spark to ignite new rumors. Oscar Piastri in Ferrari in 2027. A rumor coming from Australia, fueled by discontent after the contact with Lando Norris, and some instances of team orders that the young Australian didn't take well. The real question is, does it make sense? Why would Piastri even think about leaving McLaren now that he's winning everything? The case arose a few weeks ago at Monza. McLaren orders Norris to let Piastri pass after a slow pit stop. And in Singapore, when the situation is reversed, the favor is not returned. Norris forces an aggressive overtake in turn 3, Piastri protests via radio. This isn't fair. Sorry, but this isn't fair. From there, the theory is fueled that Norris is the darling of Woking, the driver the team is truly banking on for the future. And so is the Ferrari rumor reality or fantasy. According to the Swiss newspaper Blick, Piastri has set his sights on Ferrari for 2027, eyeing the uncertainty of the two main drivers. Hamilton might retire, Leclerc stays, but he's not locked in for life. But here's the truth. Piastri signed a contract with McLaren until 2028 and currently leads the drivers' standings with a 22-point advantage over Norris. The team is already the Constructors' champion with 6 races to spare. From a sporting point of view, there's no logical reason to consider an immediate exit. These rumors are more a result of post-race tensions than actual market movement. Piastri's contract may have clauses related to future competitiveness. If McLaren collapses with the new 2026 regulations, then the driver might indeed look around. But as of today, it's pure fantasy. Formula One is about to enter a new era. Revolutionized grounds, completely different engines, hierarchies to be rewritten. Today, McLaren is at the top, but no one can guarantee it will still be there in 2 years. And that's where the magic word for every top driver comes into play. You need a plan B. It doesn't mean that Piastri really wants to leave, but that he and his entourage are keeping their eyes open, just like all champions do, Verstappen and Hamilton foremost. In 2027, the market could go crazy. And the fundamental problem is the papaya rules, because McLaren has created its own problems and chaos within the team, with the rivalry originating more from McLaren than from the drivers. Norris and Piastri got along until Monza. Then at Monza, something changed because McLaren favored Norris in that situation when there was no reason to favor Norris, because even if there's a position swap for a slow pit stop, the points for the constructors, if the two drivers finish close, are the same for the team. So there's no reason to do the position swap. If you impose it in that case, it creates a precedent, and that's what happened in Singapore, when rightfully Piastri wanted a position swap given what happened in Monza. In short, the basic rule is, whoever is in front has the priority, the other must adapt. An approach designed to avoid internal drama and protect the driver's title. In 2024, this policy made sense. The papaya rules worked with 2 very strong young drivers, but still in the growth phase. There was no real risk of internal fighting, but in 2025, the situation changed. Piastri and Norris are both contenders for the driver's title, and neither wants to play second fiddle to the other. Why is this papaya rules strategy a boomerang? In Formula One, you can try to be balanced, but when you have 2 drivers fighting for the World Championship, absolute parity is an illusion. Every team order becomes a political weapon, every strategic choice is seen as favoritism, and above all, you can't ask 2 champions not to be selfish. Formula One is born from the challenge between individuals, from the desire to be number one. Letting them race doesn't mean saying do as you please, but setting a few clear rules, and then allowing the drivers to compete for the win on track without forced team games. Mercedes did it for years with Hamilton and Rosberg, with all the risks we know, but also with great success. And so what to expect now? After Singapore, the cover has been lifted, the gloves are off, and it will be impossible to put them back on. Norris and Piastri will arrive at the last races with fresh wounds and the awareness that the team can't protect them both. McLaren has already won the Constructors' Championship, but risks losing internal serenity and above all blowing up the morale of its leading driver for the future. Piastri is tied until 2028, but an environment perceived as unbalanced can weigh in the coming seasons. But we also need to talk about the future of Formula One and a possible return of the Grand Prix in South Korea. Let's see who proposed it and why. Formula One is experiencing an era of unprecedented global expansion, but for Toto Wolff, an important piece is still missing, namely South Korea. Yes, Yonggam, where races were held from 2010 to 2013 with wins by Alonso and Vettel before the GP disappeared from the calendar due to economic and organizational issues. Today, the Mercedes team principal sends a clear message. It's time to return to Korea. Why? Toto Wolff explains that East Asia is a huge but neglected market, and Formula One can't afford to ignore it any longer. Our fastest growing demographic is young women aged 15 to 24, very active on social media. And Korea is a hyper-connected country. It would be fantastic to show how Formula One has changed over the last 10 years. These are statements from Toto Wolff, and it's not just marketing either. It's about global strategy and also talent. Motorsport thrives on local heroes. In Germany, the Schumacher effect inspired generations of drivers. In Asia, there's only Tsunoda and Albon to represent millions of fans. To grow, you need reference points and home races. Furthermore, the calendar might help because Formula One is already experimenting with GP rotation. See Belgium from 2027, and Toto Wolff suggests that biennial events could free up space to bring it back to Korea. Even the reorganization of continental blocks like Japan being moved from October to April could open up logistical windows to return to Yonggam or a new Korean track. And it's not just theory. Mercedes has already taken a concrete step with the mega event Peaches Run Universe 2025 at the AAMG Speedway in Ogim, where Valtteri Bottas will race with the V13 in front of thousands of fans. It's a test to understand the audience potential. Behind this proposal, there is a vision, better balancing the World Championship. Today, America has 3 Grand Prix in the United States, plus Mexico and Brazil. Europe holds up with its historic Grand Prix races. The Middle East is growing enormously. Asia, apart from Japan and a fluctuating China GP, is empty. For Toto Wolff, it makes no sense to leave uncovered an area that thrives on technology, esports and pop culture, which already drive the success of Formula One among young people. Let me know your opinion on all the topics we covered in the video. From the internal discussion within Ferrari to the possibility of Leclerc leaving Ferrari in 2027, as well as Lewis Hamilton possibly retiring that year. Tell me what you think about the papaya rules, the possibility of Piastri going to Ferrari, the technical issues of the red car, and also the possibility of seeing a Grand Prix in Korea. I'm curious to read and respond to everyone. As always, I remind you to leave a like, subscribe, and activate notifications so you don't miss any videos on the channel. That's all from Rasta. See you in the next video.